Welcome to Supernal David podcast. I like wearing them. Let's just be cool for 5 minutes and wear our shades. I wear my sunglasses at night so I can. Well, my name is David Taylor, aka Mannequin. I'm currently a contestant in America's Next Top Hitmaker contest, and we're just finishing up the group set of competitions where they whittle it down to the final. So tonight, or actually tomorrow morning, I'll find out if I'm moving on to the finals, but I got down to the top 5, and then I was second in the running for that, and so they put me into the wild card category. And so the last few days, you go promote yourself on your social media platforms and find out tomorrow if I made it. But I've had a lot of cool support. The winners from last year do Plexity. They have a new song that just came out called Not Today. So that was part of the theme when I was choosing. I was promoting my YouTube premiere for my podcast, which I had started like a season 1 and part of a season 2 on YouTube. Instagram, which was like 10 episodes season 1, just to get my feet wet on doing a podcast in general. And now I've decided to kind of like take it a little more professional on YouTube. And so this is my premiere. And yeah, so Duplexity, I do like kind of like a photography advertisement with music, usually when I promote my podcast. So I'm really into photography and like music and editing and all that stuff. And so my podcast usually goes in between the topics of spirituality, entertainment, movies, music, sharing personal experiences, all that sort of subjects or whatnot. And so, yeah. And so I used their song Not Today, which kind of, and then I also incorporate, I studied Kabbalah for 20 years with the Kabbalah Center. And even though I don't study directly with the Kabbalah Center anymore, I still study the weekly Zohar and Old Testament Bible portion. Because if you know anything about Kabbalah, they use the main text is the Holy Zohar written by Rabbi Shimon. It's an ancient holy text, and the Old Testament, the first 5 books of Moses. But it's not just the ancient Kabbalists decode the secrets behind the Old Testament with the Zohar is kind of like its companion to decoding the secrets of the Old Testament. It's also in the Vatican Library, the Zohar, and you learn through Kabbalah that these ancient holy texts are not meant to be taken literally, and there's a lot of misinterpretations, as we've all noticed in religion, and people who've used it throughout time to discriminate others, which is not what the intention ultimately was for it. And so on my podcast, what we do is we study like a lot of different spiritualities, different ancient texts, whether it's Hinduism, shamanism, Christianity, Catholicism, Native American teachings, Buddhism, Kabbalah, Judaism. I'm kind of like a theologian and have been since I was like younger, and I like to explore all sorts of like spiritualities and divination tools and like discuss. And so that's what this forum is for, to kind of like not only talk about spirituality but entertainment. I'm like, I grew up as a singer-songwriter. From the age of 14, I was writing poetry and songs, and I was a backup singer and a band as a teenager, and then I started, co-producing electronic music, and um, I worked on my first album, 21st Century Psalms. I was co-producing that with a DJ in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is my hometown that I was born. And I was working with this pretty successful DJ Access on that. Long story short, we didn't end up finishing it, but we got to like around, was it like 13 to 16 songs where we had co-produced the music, and then I recorded the vocals on one song on Ableton Live with him, King Messiah, and then I also did a cover, like revamp of Madonna's Angel, which I ended up doing the vocals when I moved to Chicago with a different friend of mine, and then I ended up shooting like a music video that's on YouTube for my Angel cover song, which is like a homage to Madonna's old 80s videos and Desperately Seeking Susan. And then while I was in Chicago is when I really made my stride as like a singer-songwriter, music co-producer, and I worked on for 4 years from 2012 to 2016 my debut album Revelations with my co-producer Ron Sager, who's also a DJ, and we released that on all digital platforms in 2016, so that's available. If you'd like to hear that, you can hear it on YouTube, or you can download it on iTunes or whatever. And that is the album that I've entered into the America's Next Top Hitmaker contest this year, which I'm in the middle of right now. And so if I win, they announce the winner August 15th. Excuse me, yeah, August 15th. And then if you win, you get your an article in Rolling Stone. SoundCloud puts you on a billboard, I believe, in Times Square. You win $50,000. You get to perform at Global Citizen Foundation and Charity, which is like a charity for to remove extreme poverty in the world. They have a festival every year in the fall, so it lands at the end of September. So it's called the Global Citizen Festival, and I would get to open for that festival and do some of my music off my album, which is really exciting. So fingers crossed. So far, it's been like a really enjoyable process. I've connected with a lot of really cool, successful people, and it's kind of refreshing my music career and giving a second life to my album, Mannequin Revelations, me and Ron and our sound engineer Elliot Bansel put like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the creation of. I'm very proud of it. But we're not here to talk about my music as much as we are. This episode, we are going to be exploring shamanic practices, and we're going to be discussing Itzhak Berry, shaman I studied with for off and on for about a year. I was introduced to him by another spiritual teacher of mine, Parashakti. Now she goes by Parashakti Sky. She has a documentary out called Dance of Liberation. You can check out on YouTube as well. It was done by Warner Brothers. She teaches like dance, and she has like this sort of like practice where she uses a blindfold, and she has this she has the teachings. It's like the seven different like basic like I don't remember what the teachings were, and I wasn't really like taking her. She would have like Dance of Liberation, I think she had a place in New York where she would do it in LA, but I was just worked with her online, and so I was part of her Winged Ones tribal council, and so that was kind of like a different schooling where we would learn about gemstones, and she has her own Winged Ones jewelry line with like different crystals, and so this is like a rose quartz from her line. I have a pyrite, amethyst. So we would learn a lot about that. We would learn about different Native American teachings. Amethyst, and I have a labradorite one too, which is for protection. And yeah, and so she's the one who introduced me to Itzhak Berry. And so he had a shamanic, he was like the head of the shamanic circle group out of New York. And so a lot of major, like, there was another shamanic teacher that would join him, and there was lots of students. So I joined that, and they would have like a class each month where they would teach like cord cutting or different like shamanic healing or protection ceremonies or practices, which is what we're going to discuss a little bit today. I'm going to read some of out of a few of his chapters on protection, and it kind of goes on theme with this week's Bible portion. Let me take these glasses off, and which is called Balak. So this is the Zohar, the Holy Zohar. And so you see, sometimes they have multiple chapters but for this book, it has its own, for Balak, it has its own chapter. Now, if you've ever seen like The Nun 1 or 2, or from the Conjuring universe movies, you'll notice there's like a scary, like demonic nun priest or whatever, called Valak. So it's just like a different letter, which I believe that nobody cops to saying that it's based off Balak. But to me, it's, and this is from the Old Testament. So Balak and Balaam, if you read in the Zohar from the Old Testament, from this chapter in the Kabbalistic Bible, from the first 5 books of Moses, this book we're in is the book of Numbers. It speaks about Balak and Balaam, and they were 2 like evil sorcerers that would come up against like Moses or King David, and so that's what this week's Bible portion is about. So we're gonna read a little bit about this Bible portion, and here's the Kabbalistic Bible, the Old Testament Numbers, and I will show you a little bit before we start studying. See the portion Balak. So we'll just kind of read the intro lesson and the synopsis, which is about evil eye, and it also speaks about King David. It also speaks about in the Zohar, just to preface what my podcast is about. So I've studied for 20 years. It talks a lot about King David in the Old Testament and the Holy Zohar. Now, I had started having all these synchronicities in the beginning, which led me to study Kabbalah. A friend of mine had a Zohar book that I had never heard about, the Kabbalah Center. She had this book on her shelf. It had a handwritten date in it. Just happened to be visiting her, took the book off the shelf. There was a handwritten date, like month, day, and year. And it happened to be that same day and month, but 4 years later. And so I was like, and it was just one single Zohar book. And I was like, oh, how crazy, and I was young. I was like early 20s. And so it was one of the first times I had like a major synchronicity where I was like, ooh, that's a strange coincidence. Must be a sign that I'm meant to like read this book. Borrowed the book, long story short, never read it, returned it to her. And then years later, a friend of mine was trying to coax me to go to this Kabbalah center in Las Vegas, Nevada, which was off Jones Boulevard. And at first I was resistant to go, but he was really persistent about me going, which I thought was strange. But we weren't getting along, and we would date off and on, and we were like in one of the off periods. And so I was like, didn't want to go with him. And so we stopped speaking, and like maybe a few weeks later, I went by myself, and I began studying. Right when I walk in the door, the first thing that the rabbi who was there recommended because I told him I was having like a lot of issues in work and in my love life or in work and with my family. I was going through a lot of like I went through like kind of like being disowned by my family. I dropped out of college after I had an incident with my boyfriend who I was just discussing. He ends up sleeping with my roommates, which ruined my living situation. And I was kind of had just signed up for like student aid and a grant, and I ended up like having to move out and find a new roommate on my own off Craigslist. And I dropped out of college because I was going through all this stress and turmoil of, and newsflash, I'm gay. And so I had come out to my parents, around 18. And the next few years after that, it became abundantly clear that they didn't support me in that, nor did they support me financially. And they basically threw me on the streets. And so I went through a lot of like trauma at that age, and a lot of like pain and suffering and stress and ups and downs. And that was one of the things I think I was drawn to the Kabbalah Center, because I was trying to find like, a safety raft, to kind of like survive all the turmoil I was going through. And back then I wasn't as like, I didn't have the thick skin I do now. I didn't have kind of like an understanding of like a good work ethic. I didn't understand, the value of money. I wasn't as balanced in my masculinity and femininity as I am now. And I'm not as confident in myself as I am now. And so I was really like vulnerable, intimidated back then, influenced. I was smoking, drinking, experimenting with drugs, smoking pot all the time, going out to the gay clubs. And so it was like a roller coaster ride in my 20s. I was a complete wild child. But I was going through a lot of like trauma, and so that was kind of, I ended up studying though Kabbalah for 20 years. Through those ups and downs, I really clung to, that was kind of like my life raft. It was, I was able to connect with the community, but I was also dealing with a lot of discrimination as well in the community with not only teachers, but students. I'm not really going to get into all that. But I ended up studying in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, at the Kabbalah Center there. I started off at the Vegas Kabbalah Center, and then I moved in my 30s to Chicago for a decade. And so I believe it was from like 2010, 2011. I was there for like 10 years, and I studied with the Kabbalah Center in Chicago. And that was the time also that I recorded my album, Mannequin Revelations. And Mannequin also was kind of, it was like a persona I had created. When I rewind back to Vegas, I was on this reality show in my early 20s called The Club. It was on at Club Ice in Las Vegas. It was a reality show on Spike TV. I was one of the like club kid male dancers, and it was very like I created this persona kind of inspired by Madonna, who was my idol growing up, but it had like spiritual meaning to it. It was like tongue in cheek, almost like a drag name would be, but it had so man akin. It had the spiritual aspect of like man and kin, like we are all connected, we are all one. Like man, kin means family, and man, so man akin. Manna also means from heaven, which I've always been like very spiritual and connected to God. Like my mother, when I was young, she was kind of the one who instilled spirituality into me. Like at a very young age, she would take me to like Lutheran church and had me in kind of in Sunday school, which I never wanted to do. I would always beg to go sit with my mom with the adults. So I would sit and listen to like the adult sermons. And, as I grew older, I was really kind of repelled by Christianity and Catholicism because there was a lot of like discriminatory things for the LGBTQ plus community going on back then. And I was well aware of it. So I kind of pulled away from it. And the only thing I would kind of do around that time was I would listen to Joyce Myers, and I felt like an anointing on her way back then where, I felt like she was maybe kind of like not a discriminatory preacher. And I would have these weird coincidences with her sermons popping either on the radio or television at certain times where it was like, I was having synchronicities with her as well. So there was always this like sort of calling where I would notice synchronicities and coincidences line up where it felt like as though the universe was trying to guide me to learn about spirituality and to connect with the creator or God, if you will. And so yeah, and so those were kind of all my like routes around spirituality. And one of the most major pivotal situations was I have to say this is that so early on I started having it talks about in the Zohar another David besides King David. Now if you have the Zohar or if you want to purchase one, you can go to thekabbalahcenter.com, get one of their official ones. You can get the 22 volume set where it's they have it translated in different languages. So it's in Hebrew or Aramaic, and then it's translated, the one I have, into English, but they have them translated into Spanish and lots of different languages. And you can go to Kabbalah.com and order it. They'll ship it to you. They have condensed versions all in one book where it's just Hebrew Aramaic, just to connect to the energy or scan the Hebrew Aramaic, which is kind of like a portal. That language is kind of like if you were to go to a grocery store and scan like a barcode, it's kind of like the barcode of the upper world into the physical world. So you can draw light into your eyes, which are the windows of your soul, through the Hebrew Aramaic language. And that is the language that's used in the Zohar in the Old Testament. And so it would speak about in the Zohar this other David besides King David called Supernal David. Now it spoke about him being referred to as King Messiah and him being in the time of Messiah, which they predict, Kabbalists say that we are in this current time now, but it was spoken about like, this is ancient text. And so it was very like prophetic. The book to me, the Zohar, is not just I always joke that it's like that book from the Never Ending Story, with Atreyu. It's like a portal. They refer to it as the what's it called? It's called the Book of Splendor. And so if you go to portion Kedoshim, it speaks about another David besides King David called Supernal David. And it said that the creator created Supernal David to spread love throughout the world and mercy. And I had these just weird synchronicities with this character Supernal David when I would be studying. And Or for instance, like when I was working on my album 21st Century Psalms, which I started when I was around 2005 and 6, basically like 20 years ago. And it's when I started studying Kabbalah, and I was studying the Zohar, and I was having these synchronicities. And I remember this really cool story where I was like, this lady named Lisa Minden, and then her dad's like a famous jeweler in Vegas called, if you can hear them all the time on the radio, their jingle where it's like, Michael E. Minden and Company Jewelers celebrate the moments. Yeah, so that's her dad. And I met her when I was volunteering in the bookstore in Vegas one night, and she's like, oh, I just bought this new camera. I'm having to shoot this photo shoot tomorrow. Would you, because we were just chatting, and I told her I did music and modeling and acting and yada yada. And she was like, oh, would you mind coming and modeling for me on the strip? I'll take some pictures and I'll give you the pictures. And I was like, okay, cool, free photo shoot. I'm working on music. Maybe I can use them for my music career. And so we go out to the strip. We're like right in front of Caesar's Palace. If you've ever been in front of Caesar's Palace on Las Vegas Boulevard, there's this angel with like that's headless with wings, a female angel. So she ends up taking me in front of there, and she's like, and then we see that angel, and we're like, oh, this is a perfect shot. So I stand in front of the angel. There's a fountain behind me, and then Caesar's Palace. I happen to be wearing this shirt by coincidence and not even acknowledging it when we're doing the shoot, of an angel standing in front of a fountain, and then it says like a city behind it saying, and it says it's about the shirt was about like Hoover Dam, which is in between Vegas and or Nevada and Arizona. So that was what the shirt was. And it wasn't until I got the photos back that I was like, oh my God, what are the fucking, excuse my language, what are the chances? I'm a little cursy on my Instagram version, but I'm trying to tone it down and be more professional on YouTube. So excuse me if I curse, because I usually do. But I'm going to tone it down for you guys. And so yeah, so I see that and I'm like, what are the freaking chances that I'm wearing a shirt with an angel standing in front of a fountain in a city, and then I'm posing in front of an angel with a fountain behind that in a city? And so I was like, I remember even bringing it into the rabbi at the Kabbalah Center and being like, oh my God, look at this. And long story short as well, I end up down the road finding out that there's a huge like life-size, not life-size, but similar to like, the Statue of David in Florence, Italy, done by Michelangelo. Well, they had like a version of it in the Caesar's Palace and the Forum shops. So I ended up putting that together, that little piece together, and I was like, so weird that I was just having all these synchronicities with King David or the Supernal David character. Now it just got more intense over time as I studied. People started treating me like very oddly in the community, Kabbalah Center community, as if I had some sort of like destiny that I was unaware of. And certain people were aware of it. I even remember doing like a palm and face reading with this astrologer there. I don't know if he's an astrologer or he's just a face and palm reader. But he might also be an astrologer. I'm not 100% sure about if he's into astrology, but he was there to do face and palm readings. He was psychic. And when I met him, he said, oh, do you know that you have this angel that stands behind you all the time? Now, even just recently when I was studying, and my whole first season of Supernal David on Instagram was based on, I would incorporate the weekly Bible portion in it. And then I would also incorporate like a movie or a book or a series. And I would always have strange synchronicities, not only between the Kabbalistic Bible portion, but there would be these synchronicities either with my personal life or with the movie or series I was incorporating. And like, I'm talking like shocking synchronicities started to happen when I started doing the podcast, where I was like, whoa, I absolutely felt the anointing of the creator on me teaching. I wouldn't say teaching, but sharing my personal studies and my revelations, if you will, my discernment through my podcast from, just my studies and my, creative interests. And that became kind of like the magic of Supernal David podcast. Uh, and so, yeah. And so that was kind of like the origin or genesis of Supernal David. Yeah, and there's a lot more details, but we only have so much time. So I want to stay on subject, but I wanted to give you guys kind of, just since it's my first premiere episode, a little like window into like my life. I also was really pursuing like acting and modeling, and I did a few things in California. Like I was a featured extra on Home Improvement on the Disney lot. It was cool. There's a scene from an episode called Desperately Seeking Willow. If you ever want to check that out, I'm on that. And I'm like kind of in this like retro outfit with like a faux fur, full length fur coat. And I have bug-eyed glasses and bell bottoms and like look like a glam, like hippie. And Tim Allen ends up renting my outfit and wearing it at the end, so it became like a featured extra, and it was cool because I was obsessed with Madonna. So the fact that I was on an episode called Desperately Seeking Willow, which was based off of Desperately Seeking Susan, was just kind of kismet, just meant to be. And I always have these weird synchronicities with Madonna throughout all my life too. And as well, she was studied Kabbalah and or still does, I believe. And never met her in person though. And so anywho, we are going to discuss this week's Bible portion. Oh yeah, and I did a little modeling too. I got to shoot with Annie Leibovitz in Vanity Fair once. These are just kind of my favorite experiences in modeling or acting. I did a lot of theater in high school, but it was in the shoot with Vanity Fair with Seinfeld. It was his last season of Seinfeld, and he did like a cover shot with Vanity Fair, and Andre Leon Talley, God rest his soul, did the styling on the shoot, but I styled myself, and he said, "You're perfect." And I was like, yes, thank you, God. Fashion God. I got his approval, love him. And then, yeah, it was just like we're in this mansion in the Hollywood Hills. Really cool shoot. And then, yeah, like in high school, my big claim to fame there was that I played John Bender in The Breakfast Club. Was kind of like competing in 4 different one-act plays, and I won Best Supporting Actor. That was kind of like my first foray in theater of like a cool role where I kind of proved to myself I could, and my family, not that I was trying to prove anything to them, but I was, I wanted to be an actor, and I memorized the whole play, and I got kudos from the judges and won an award my senior year. And so that was kind of like where I got the taste for acting. But I was struggling when I was in California trying to make it, and I went through a lot of like trauma there. Not going to get into all my trauma, but I went through like bouts of homelessness and poverty and just like traumatic experiences when I was in Vegas, California, and Chicago. A lot of trauma in Chicago. I was like mugged. I was like, I've experienced like rape when I was homeless, and I've been physically assaulted. So I have a lot of like PTSD. Since I came back to Vegas the past 7 years, I ended up reconnecting with my mother that I was estranged with since I was like a teenager, and helping take care of my stepfather for 7 years who had dementia. Then he passed away, and me and my mother moved into the house we're in now, which was just we just moved in here a year ago, and he passed away 2 years ago. And so I've been in therapy the last few years with an amazing lesbian therapist in Vegas, and we have weekly sessions for about a year and a half now. And I've done like a lot of healing with my trauma with her, which has helped a lot, and just like a lot of self healing through spirituality, Kabbalah, just from my own sort of like desire to heal myself, and connecting with spirit and engaging with spirit. And that was something, like I've always like engaged with spirit, but the past year I have gotten so much closer with the creator and learned to like commune with spirit in a way that I hadn't for so many years. And I've had like a lot of my I'm very psychic, very clairvoyant. I get prophetic dreams and visions and synchronicities, and we'll discuss more of those things and experiences as we move forward. Like I will literally get prophetic dreams, and then things will happen after the dreams exactly like in my dream. Or I'll have synchronicities that reveal secrets to me. And I used to read tarot when I was in high school, and then for the past 5-6 years I started collecting oracle decks, and I do oracle decks. And I'm just the past 2 years have been watching a lot of tarot readings, and thinking about getting back into like learning tarot. And it's not like I'm looking to like get into it like professionally to do readings for people. It's more like I do it for my own sort of connection, or when I need guidance from spirit, I can do an oracle reading for somebody. Or I have one or a tarot deck, but I want to collect a few more. And it was more of like an artsy piece, the tarot deck. I just want to get a different deck. I got this like a dark crystal one, but it was for like a theme for one of the Supernal David season 1 Instagram podcast episodes. I got that for that when I was one of the themes for one of the episodes was the Dark Crystal movie, which I loved. And so I think that's like the gist of what the ground I wanted to lay, just for you guys to get to know me a little bit. But now we're going to stick to what the lesson is this week, which is going to be about the lesson of Balak from the Bible and a little bit from the Zohar. Then we're going to go into like shamanic healing or protection or cleansing practices from Mitzvah Berry's shamanic healing book. We're going to do a cord cutting ceremony with my selenite cord cutting wand, knife or wand or whatever you want to call it, which I learned how to do in his shamanic classes. And we're also going to take a look. We're going to open my new Atlanta Fairchild Kali Oracle deck, and we will do a card reading. And I will show you, I also have bought the Atlanta Fairchild's Kali journal that goes along with it, which I haven't even looked in yet. So I was just saving this for this episode, so I can journal when I do the readings with this deck. And what else did I have on the agenda? Oh yeah, and we'll do a little smudging. I got some Dragon's Blood Sage, which is also for protection from negativity. And we'll talk a little bit about, here's all my notes for what we're going to discuss. We're going to learn about selenium. I also just got this Merkaba, which I've wanted for quite a while, which is kind of referred to as Metatron's cube. It is also referred to as the chariot for Supernal David, King Messiah, and Supernal David's connection to the angel Metatron, and this is Metatron's cube. So I got these two. I got the Metatron's cube in selenite this week, and I also got this little awesome Archangel Metatron. It has crystals and stones combined together, amulet, and yeah, I'm like obsessed. So gorgeous. It's just beautiful. And so it was funny because I did like just a spontaneous episode. I was doing some spontaneous episodes on Instagram of Supernal David the past 2 weeks to just get myself ready and in the mode for YouTube. And when I did the last episode, I kind of did this pose like this. And then I'm studying last week's Bible portion, Shukot, and it talks about David, and the stone that the builders rejected ends up being the cornerstone, or the stone in the corner. And then it refers to him being the fourth part of the chariot. This is what this Metatron cube is referred to as, the chariot for Supernal David. So this is what I'm talking about. I have uncanny synchronicities with the Holy Zohar, with the Old Testament. Even the week before that, I had another psychic vision, and this is where I was deciding. I had prayed to the Creator. I was like, God, I'm going to do the new version of Supernal David on YouTube. Do you want me to continue to incorporate the Zohar and the Old Testament in my weekly studies into these episodes? Because there was a little, I'm openly gay. I had dealt with a lot of like backlash with teachers and students in the community discriminating me, sad to say, in the Kabbalah Center community. And after 20 years I pulled out of it because it started becoming like really crazy, the amount of like discrimination I was dealing with, and it just got like I don't even want to get into it. It was just so ugly. And, I forgive those people. I've moved on from that. I don't want to rehash that subject, but it is what it is. So I'm just going to preface with saying that. Now, when I began to study, started sharing on my podcast, my studies, I felt I was getting some evil eye from certain community members that did not like me and did not like the fact that I was, which it's like, you can't put a monopoly on the Zohar or the Bible or the Old Testament. You know what I mean? They're my books. It's my 20 years of wisdom. If I'm anointed by the Creator and I'm feeling anointed by the Creator to share and do Bible studies and share just my personal discernment on my podcast, I'm going to, and I'm not going to let anyone try to stop me or oppress me. And if it's my calling to spread the light of the Zohar or the Bible or my discernment or my wisdom, with people and open people's mind, especially in my community where through all these religions, so many people have discriminated the LGBTQ plus community. So if I can spread spirituality and to my community, because a lot of my community is turned away from spirituality and religion because of the oppression of people taking these ancient texts and using them to oppress a certain community. And then by default, my community has rejected these tools or ancient texts that are meant for them to learn about and discern as well for their own sort of like selves, not by somebody else's religious dogma and their interpretations. Like, find your own interpretation, and if it doesn't resonate with you, reject it. And when it does resonate with you, then that's what you incorporate. You know what I mean? And that's, I don't know why I'm looking down, like the camera's right here. I have to get used to looking at the fucking green dots instead of myself. And it was weird. I tried to film it off my phone for live, and it was like, you need to make shorts before you can go live on your phone, but yet it lets me on my laptop. I'm like, I don't understand what the issue was with YouTube on my phone doing that. Anyways, but so yeah, I was just kind of like, I asked God recently, I was just tired of dealing with the, my community gets it, the LGBTQIA plus community. It gets just like draining to have to deal with that sort of like discrimination and oppression, to where you just don't want anything to do with any sort of religious, communities. And so, or any religious texts. And a lot of things have just been taken out of context, manipulated, rewritten for their own agenda. And so, I was having synchronicities and signs that led me to study the Old Testament and Kabbalah. And that's what led me to it. It wasn't anybody forcing me to do it. And nobody forces me to believe anything. It has to resonate with me. And I question everything. And if it doesn't resonate with me, I'm like, I'm good. I don't let it hold me back. Maybe when I was younger, I was more influenced by it, and I had more of like a moral dilemma of like, am I going to go to hell? Am I bad because I'm gay? I even tried as a teenager to be straight, but unsuccessfully. And, and I really had to come to terms with like my own personal relationship with the creator. And once I did that and started to feel like an engagement through synchronicities and signs, and I believe the creator communicates in mysterious ways that he can communicate, he or she, I don't believe it's like one sort of sex. I'm from like the belief of the original Big Bang version of the creator, Ayin Sof, which is just kind of like, an encapsulation of male and female energy, divine female. And it's just an encapsulation of all creation into this, I like to say, source energy, like Abraham Hicks teaches, with law of attraction. I prefer to say like source energy or Ein Sof, but I'll say it all. Sometimes I'll say God, Lord, you can say whatever you want, Lordess. I'm not into labels, first of all, but I'm so well-rounded and studied in spirituality and religious, doctrine, where it's like, I see lots of things or refer to things in lots of ways because I have a deeper understanding of what it means to me. And when I say things, it's not with the same sort of like stigma that, say, somebody who is religiously oppressing people has. And so, yeah. And so, that's how that, oh no, so here was the sign I got. So, last week I asked the creator, I was like, I was preparing and collecting all my cooperative components for this premiere episode, and I was shopping like, at Barnes and Noble and this metaphysical Reiki center, and deciding what I wanted to talk about or teach or share, and how I was going to do the YouTube version differently than the Instagram version of Supernal David podcast. And so I remember specifically having this prayer to God and being like, God, do you want me, give me a sign if you want me to continue sharing my, studies weekly. So whenever I do an episode, I'll share whatever that the Bible portion is that week and incorporate it. And then that's what I did. Like, we're in Balak right now, so we're studying the current portion. But this was last week, and it was Chukat. And So I had this weird coincidence where I have this default setting on my television. So when you go to input on my big screen TV, you see it right back there. So I go to input, then it'll go to the apps like HBO Max, Netflix, whatever. And so there's a default setting where it shows, let me set this down for a second. There's a default setting that shows like different aerial views of different cities throughout the world. And I sometimes I just love when I'm laying on my bed and I'm tired or I wake up, I'll just like stare at it because it's just soothing and cool to see these aerial views of cities all over the world. And so that day or whatever, there was like an aerial view, but like above the clouds of these skyscrapers where the buildings were coming like above the clouds. Now, a few years back, I'll show you from this book. So this is one of the main prayer books. You can also get this on Kabbalah.com. This is my daily prayer book that I use for my Kabbalah prayers. The main prayers I do in the morning are the 18 blessings, the morning blessings, the Anabakoa, which is like a really powerful prayer that incorporates the angels of the day and week for the entire week. There's specific packets of Hebrew Aramaic letters that you can draw angels for each day of the week. And then there's also Reiki, little map of the body called Tikkun Hanefesh, where you can do your Reiki on your body and soul. And that's part of the Anabakoa prayer. And it's like connects to the 7 days of the week. Then there's also like a healing prayer, a protection and traveling prayer, and the 72 names of God. And then I'll do a little bit of Holy Zohar too. That's my morning ritual. And over the years, I learned how impactful those prayers are and what an absolute difference they make in your day. And when I don't do them, I feel completely different. I feel vulnerable and kind of like to the negative forces in the world. And I feel very like empowered in so many different ways. I could go on and on when I do those prayers morning. It kind of just sets me up. It's like putting on your spiritual armor. And so there was this one prayer that I had never would do, and it's in this book, and I would just skip it all the time because it was like long. It was like a 10-page prayer. And all the other prayers I've done so many times throughout the years that it's like memorized. And but this one was not. And so I'm a little bit slower when I read it because I only speak English. This is the only language I speak. But some of the prayers from doing, or some of the songs from Shabbats and from studying for 20 years, I can sing certain Kabbalistic songs in Hebrew or Aramaic, or do this the prayers from Dialing God, like the 18 blessings. I can like speed through it because it's ingrained in my like psyche or whatever, and from doing it so many years, or the Shabbat songs and prayers. And because I used to do Shabbat every week, Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. That was kind of like a ritual I did for on and off for 20 years. And now when I do it at home, but I just on Saturday morning, I just connect to the Torah portion, and study and I'll scan the Torah portion, the Hebrew Aramaic, and do a little study. And just recently I've, decided to connect on Shabbat mornings with people online and, share about the Bible portion for that Shabbat. Since I got this sign, so I'm about to tell you what the sign was from God, confirming that I should continue sharing, because I wasn't going to like incorporate this onto this episode, but this synchronicity was like my jaw was on my desk. It happened live when I was recording an Instagram version last week of Supernal David, and it happened in real time as I was recording. I was freaking gobsmacked. So let me get to the crazy synchronicity. So, all right, so let me find this prayer. It's called Petiak Eliyahu, and it refers to Elijah the prophet. Now, when I was in Chicago, they would teach that we would do like hand out flyers or a little pinkus protection, holy Zohars. These are like the small versions of like the holy Zohar. This one's like for soulmates. There's a protection one too. So we would hand out those protection books around town, and so they would always say, like, if you ever see like a homeless person where it doesn't seem like they're behaving like typically or anything, you be careful, because not be careful, but be aware that it could be Eliyahu the prophet in disguise. And depending on how you treat them, you either get a blessing, or you could, I don't want to say you could get a curse, but and and so we had one experience like that one time when we were like doing an event of handing out it was either flyers or the Holy Zohar books. It's called like a protective pinkus small book, which was for like healing or protection. And excuse me, I was singing today, so I'm a little bit and I sing my song Syndustry today to promote the last day of the competition into the finals. And so we run into this like homeless guy. He had like shoulder length gray hair, and he was just acting like he looked ethereal, which was weird. He was homeless, and he was just kind of like, just had like a different demeanor than other homeless people. And it was just the way he approached us, it just felt like out of pocket. It just felt not out of pocket in a negative sense, just like strange, and like and then it was weird. So we were generous with him. Then later on, we're like in a different part of the city, and we see him like in a different part of the city, like where it was just kind of like mysterious, like, whoa, what the F? And I never forgot that story. So years ago, I had done this Petiak Eliyahu prayer, which is referring to Elijah the prophet. If I can find the damn page it's on, Jesus. God, I'm like going back and forth, back and forth. Come on! I ain't got time for this. Any day now, biatch. Here we go. See, this is it. Petiak Eliyahu, the opening of Elijah the prophet. Reciting these paragraphs can help you open your heart to spiritual wisdom. So it's like 10 pages long. I did it, years ago. And then after I did it, I noticed that I had this strange dream that night. And I had never done it, but I read the whole 10 pages. And that night I had this dream that I was in this skyscraper building above the clouds. And I was looking out of the windows and noticing that I was above the clouds. And I was like, it just felt very like heavenly. And I remember waking up and thinking, oh, that had something to do with the fact that I did that prayer. So when I saw last week that, it's always showing like aerial views of like cities all over the world, but it's never showing like above the clouds with skyscrapers above the clouds. So to me, that was like weird when I saw that on my television, and it made me think of that prayer. See how spirit works with synchronicities? And it's like you kind of have to listen and pay attention to the breadcrumbs that spirit is dropping sometimes, because it can just go right over your head. And spirit's trying to communicate with us in lots of different ways through symbols and symbology. And if we're not like paying attention to either sometimes numerology, I'm big into like, angel numbers and synchronicities with that. Spirit communicates that way with me as well. So that day I do that prayer last week. The Petiak Eliyahu, I read it. I found my old demos like a few months ago for 21st Century Psalms. My old songs that I haven't heard in 20 years. I found them in my storage when we moved over here. But I was like, oh, I don't have a CD player. Now, I have an old MacBook that I gave to my mom, and I forgot that there's a CD player on the side. Now, when I was doing this prayer last week, the Petiak Eliyahu one, I had some weird thought in my head that it was almost like an angel whispered in my ear, "Oh, you have a CD player on your old MacBook in the office that you gave to your mom. You can listen to your old demos for 21st Century Psalms on that." So I kind of stopped what I was doing, went in there, listened to some of it, and it was just crazy to like hear those songs like 20 years later. And I was like, oh, I really feel like, excuse me, it's been a long day. And doing that prayer, I got that channeled whisper in my ear, like what is that, clairaudience? You're getting like auditory communication from source or spirit guides or your angels or whatever you want to like call your ancestors, your inner being. And it felt like channeled. I was like, for me to just like not play that and think I don't have a CD player, and then as I'm doing that prayer, get that sort of stream of consciousness idea, was just kind of like, that didn't feel like it was just coincidence. So later on, I was just gonna go to bed, but I was like kind of a little bit sweaty. I don't like to go to like I in summer in Vegas, like I like to take a shower in the morning and in the evening, and I just sleep better. And I don't like feeling like sweaty or sticky before I go to bed. And sticky. And so I like go take a shower, get out, and I'm like, you know what? Go do a little surprise episode of Supernal David. And we'll just study because it was the beginning of the week, and I was like, we'll do a little Bible study. And because I always study in the beginning of the week, and I was like, I started doing more Supernal David Instagram episodes as I was in preparation for the YouTube official premiere and transition. And so I was like, all right, let me do a little Bible study. It was like Sunday or Monday, which you always start the new cycle of the new chapter like on Saturday night, Sunday, and officially, Monday, all the way through Friday and Saturday, the next Shabbat, following Shabbat. And so, and it gives you, when you do it immediately like that, you get the cosmic energy that's going on in the universe, and you really tap into like lots of secrets and of protection and healing, and are all sorts of like spiritual like blessings and attributes. There's like a lot of secrets revealed when you study, and you discern with your study. You'll get revelation on all these like it's kind of like having a heads up for astrological events in the cosmos, or like just cosmic energy that's in the universe going on throughout the week. It's all kind of like connected to the Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Formation by Abraham, the patriarch, which is, they say, it created the 12 astrological signs and the corresponding planets in association. So you can draw on that light energy to like influence your entire month. Shabbats, you can influence your entire week by studying the Bible portion and scanning and studying the Torah portion on Shabbat and Saturday mornings. And so these were lots of secrets, revealed to me by, Rav and Karen Berg, who were the head of the Kabbalah Center, and their teachers. And you just learn throughout the years when you learn things and you apply them, and then you find your own revelation and your own discernment. So doing it for 20 years, you find a lot of revelation and a lot of discernment. So you know what works and what doesn't work for you and all that. And so I started doing the study. This is what made my jaw drop on the floor or desk. I was like reading just the intro like we're going to do for Balak right now. And it was talking about it got to a point where it started talking about Eliyahu the prophet. And I was like, what? And then it even told a story about a homeless person, or no, not Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet. It's Petziach Eliyahu is the prayer, but it talks about Elijah the prophet in that prayer. Now, in this portion, randomly, I had no idea, and it's not talking about it from the Bible portion. It's talking about it in just like the intro from the author, who's, breaking down what that portion is about. He just tells a story about Eliyahu the prophet, and like the story about a homeless person coming to this woman, and she helps him and she gets this blessing from helping him. And so for me, and I had no idea. So I will remember little details about Bible portions, but not the text in the book. I'm not that thorough of a person. I don't have that great of a memory. I had no idea it was going to speak about that in the intro. And so for that weird synchronicity with the skyscrapers above the clouds to get me to do that prayer, to lead to that synchronicity where I had, of Eliyahu the prophet in the Bible portion, to have that sort of channeled psychic sort of like download on me. After that week, I was literally asking God to give me a sign. Should I continue with sharing my Bible study on the YouTube version of Supernal David? That was my confirmation. That's where I was like, okay. And, and a lot of people are resistant to studying the Bible because of the oppression from different religious people and different religions. And there's that part of me that was like that too, where I was like, and there's so many, the literal stories are so kind of like controversial and like offensive. And there's lots of, it's not politically correct. It's an ancient text. It's not meant to be read literal. When you get all these Kabbalistic secrets, you're like, oh, that means that. Like, and a lot of like people in Christianity or Catholicism, they'll read the Old Testament very literally, and they don't know all these secret codes to the Hebrew and Aramaic language and what it really means. And there's so much like so many people that perpetuate like an ignorant perception or like interpretation of that ancient text. And it's like ridiculous because it just causes wars, it causes, discrimination, oppression, killing, the gamut. And that's not what it was intended for. And but the negative side loves when, the negative side loves when it can take a powerful spiritual tool and get it away from people, because the negative side does not. Speaking of that was one of the quotes I shared for this episode. One of the inspirations. It's a famous quote, and they would share this quote in Kabbalah as well. I'm going to read it right now. It says, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist." I've studied for most of my life too. I've watched probably every paranormal investigation show I could get my hands on or my eyes on. And I also experienced things when I was younger with like doing Ouija board with friends, or being around. I was around a friend who used to play Ouija board, and she let something into her and was playing with like a satanic book. And they invited me over. I didn't know what they were like doing, and I sat through it, and she let something in her. And years later, I had invited her over, and this is when I was studying Kabbalah, and I remember saging her because I knew she was just kind of like she was in some unsavory environments, and she was leaving like a toxic relationship, and I invited her over to just kind of get some peace of mind. And when she came over, I saged her and did this Kabbalistic prayer, which banishes any negative forces. And she cocked her head back, said something in another language, and the light fixture in the entrance of my apartment fell from the ceiling. The hair on my arm stood up. She said something in another language and in like a male voice. It was not her. And she was stunned and said, "Keep reading that." She didn't even know what had happened to her. But when we were teenagers, like in junior high, they invited me over to this house, her and this other girl. And the other girl said she had like some satanic book from one of her, like her older sibling. And they had put these curtains in the hallway, and they did this thing on a Ouija board called Devils in the Corner, and something with like a mirror, and they flipped the little thing in the little Ouija board thing. And I was just like naive. I didn't know what was going on. I'm in junior freaking high. I'm like a freaking little nerd, and like just like hanging out, and was like, "Oh, we're doing something spooky." I did not know anything about Ouija boards, but I got scared when they were doing it, because she got possessed when they let whatever was in her, they let something go into her. And she started going, and she was like laughing like scary, and tears started coming down her face. And then she tried to grab my leg, and I like jumped up, and I was just like, "I'm done." And then like the girl Mona was like, don't go out of the room, or don't like open the curtain, it'll get stuck in her. And then like, so she did all the ritual to get it out of her, and so she starts like slowly stop laughing, this scary like clown laugh, like will never get the sound of that out of my head. I was like, either this chick deserves a freaking Oscar for her performance, or she was really possessed. At that age, I did not know. And I remember, so she does the prayer and does the little ritual on the thing to get it out of her. And then suddenly she's just like sitting there like blank with tears down her face. And we're like saying her name, like, "Are you there?" And then she just act like she was in a daze. And I remember like leaving and getting the hell out of there. And it's honestly, I don't remember much after that. I just remember that's it. So I don't know how I was influenced by it, but I was like, I don't have any memory of like, just my last memory is her sitting there and like coming back to, and I don't remember like leaving or what happened after that. And it was like, that I remember seeing her days later at school in the hallway and going up to her and be like, "Were you faking that?" And she just had this weird look where she was just looking at me weird. And it was almost like I could see something behind her eyes. Like it felt like when I was looking at her, I was like looking into her soul, and it wasn't just her. And she wouldn't answer me. And like in my third eye right now, and looking in retrospect, I feel like I was like, I knew something was like in her and it wasn't her. But I was really just trying to like, I wanted her to tell me that it wasn't, and she was just acting. But she wouldn't answer me, and she would just give me this blank stare. And I was like, she's either trying to mess with me or scare me, or there's something in her kind of controlling her, and nobody knows it. So yeah, cut to years later in our like freaking mid-20s, and me banishing something out of her. Oh, like, you understand why I kept studying Kabbalah after that? That is that hooked me. Because the tools, I was like, oh, if these tools can do that level of protection, where I was saged into this Kabbalistic prayer and it knocked something out of her, banished, exorcised a demonic presence out of my friend. I studied Kabbalah ever since, and I never stopped using the tools. All right. So now you see, I just had to get this sort of out of the way. This episode is going to be the foundation for the rest of the episodes, so you can understand who you're dealing with. All right. Ready for the lesson? All right. So this is Balak, like the Conjuring series of Valak, which we're going to talk a smidge about what the new so September 5th is the I'm so sad that it's the last of the Conjuring series. I think it's the 4th movie. You know, the last one was The Devil Made Me Do It. So I think this one's going to be maybe the best. I just have like really high hopes about this one. It's called The Last Rites. And it's also their so I'm obsessed with Ed and Lorraine Warren because I was obsessed for many years with paranormal investigations. There was even one series where Lorraine Warren, her last years, came on. What was it called? I don't remember the name of it. Paranormal something. And you know, they're notorious. They're like the first kind of paranormal pioneers. Like the Vatican would send them because the priests were afraid to go to these like major like hauntings that were like getting so much attention from like the newspapers, like worldwide, like international attention, like the Amityville house, or The Devil Made Me Do It one, where I went to court, or yeah. And so they were kind of like the first paranormal pioneers to become like completely infamous. And you know, so Lorraine was like psychic, and she was like she was Catholic, and her husband Ed, they were just kind of like, he was like into like, you know, demonology and like banishing like demonic forces and how to do that. And so together they were like this powerhouse couple, paranormal investigators, and like she was psychic, and you know, together they were just kind of like they would go into these really scary experiences and help save these families against like really dark forces, and they would document everything. And these 4 movies have been based on their actual cases. And so this last one is based on their final case. So we'll discuss that towards the end of this episode, what that case is about. So I got all my notes and everything ready. So right, let's get through the Bible portion, a little bit about the lesson of Balak. So, and it's Balak and Balaam. These were the 2 sorcerers that it refers to. So this is going to be the foundation also for all our discussion. The Bible chapter concerns the story of Balak and Balaam. Balaam was a great prophet, but the difference between him and Moses is revealed by the following midrash, which says, now I'm going to just preface as well, this is all code. When it says Israel, it's not just referring to this country of Israel, or when it's referring to Egypt, it's not referring to just the country of Egypt. It's symbolic for freedom and slavery, and it's a code word. It's never meant to be like a literal thing. Israelite is meant to be like any sort of human being connected to the light, not just people who are from Israel. So when I'm reading this ancient text, don't get hung up in the religious interpretations, because you're going to miss the whole point, okay? Because even in the beginning, I was resistant as well, and I get it. But the creator has made it very clear that there's something to it's also referred to as like what do they say? It's like the clothing is, the literal version is just like the clothing of the soul of the Torah. So it's not, you don't judge the person on their clothing. It's just kind of like, the covering, but you have to like look at the soul. That's basically, you have to like decode the literal Torah and find the soul within it. All right, so let's go on. In Israel, there was never a prophet like Moses, but in the nations of the world, there was one, and that was Balaam. Yet Moses was a righteous person, while Balaam was a wicked person, the Zohar says. Rav Shimon, who is the author of the Holy Zohar, said, Rabbi Eleazar, all the sayings of Balaam, the wicked, are harsh. The friends already explained them as it is written, and there arose not a prophet since Israel like Moses. Deuteronomy 34:10. They said that one such, however, did arise, not in Israel, but among the nations of the world. That was Balaam. We have already explained this matter, that there is no one like Moses in higher crowns, and there is no one like Balaam in the lower crowns. This one in the aspect of holiness, and that one in the aspect of the left. That's from the Zohar, chapter Balak 11:162. Having a little coffee. Have a little Gatorade. It's warm now. So how do we understand the difference between these two people, both of whom are recognized as great prophets? We might also ask ourselves why this is important. Why do we even need to think about righteous or evil people who lived thousands of years ago in the desert? How is this connected to what we experience today? The answer is that the connection is very clear and direct. Moses and Balaam exist within each of us, and in understanding how Balaam fell and became negative, we ourselves might learn how to avoid falling. Specifically, we can learn from Balaam's reply to the messengers who came to him. He said, God said I should not go with you. God had told him, you should not go with them, and you should not be with the people because they are blessed. Numbers 22:12. The reason God told Balaam not to go is obvious. Since the people of Israel were blessed, they could not be cursed. But Rashi tells us that Balaam misrepresented what God had said to him. Balaam said to the messengers, God will not let me go with you, but only with ministers more important than you. Balaam chose to interpret the situation not in terms of protecting the people from a curse, but as a matter of protecting his own honor. By acting in this way, Balaam actually denied the words of God. The evil Balaam used to venerate himself in everything. With all these, he used to deceive people's minds and reached a high level with his rhetorical speeches. He used to make mountains out of molehills. Whatever he said about these levels of filthy speech, he spoke the truth. However, that wicked one used to speak and heap praise upon himself in a disguised manner and give the impression of his greatness through the use of his words until whoever listened to him would think that he had exceeded above all the prophets of the world, as it says, the saying of him who hears the words of El and knows the knowledge of the Most High. Numbers 24:16, which is the person in the world who hears such talk and could imagine any other prophet in the world as trustworthy. The Zohar, Balak 12:165. The root of this problem lies in the fact that we so often hear and see only what we want to hear and see. This is what we recognize in Balaam. When Balaam finally went on the road, an angel of God stood before him, yet Balaam couldn't see the angel. However, if Balaam was on the level of Moses, how could this be possible? What's more, it is written that even Balaam's donkey saw the angel. There can only be one explanation for Balaam's blindness. Although he was a prophet and could see the future, he was so invested in his ego that he saw only what he wanted to see. The human eye functions in such a way that it usually sees everything upside down. The brain reverses the perceptual image so that we see the world as it probably is, but our true vision is still restricted by the limits of our spirituality. Our true potential is unlimited. If we fulfilled the potential of our souls, we could see and hear everything. If we would only remain open to what's around us, we could find answers to all our questions just from our own observations. Most of the time, the only reason our questions persist is because we are afraid of the answers. Although we frequently already know the solution to our particular problem, we hope the real answer is not what we think it is, because that might be a little frightening or uncomfortable. People even react this way to the teachings of Rav Berg. They tell themselves the Rav didn't mean that, or I didn't understand the Rav, or the Rav probably didn't understand what I was trying to say. We even change the meaning of what has been said to us so that it becomes what we wanted to hear. No, yeah, people do this all the freaking time. We all at some point or another do this. No one said that the spiritual path is an easy one, but if we want to grow and really have a good life, we sometimes have to do things that are not comfortable. Only in this way will we have the merit to receive what is good. In our souls, we are really one with God, and in our souls, we all know the truth, but our desire to receive for the self alone distances us from this truth. Now, if you study Kabbalah, they refer to that's kind of the root of all evil in the world, is the desire to receive for the self alone. And the antidote to that is the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. Major lesson in Kabbalah. How can we train ourselves to hear the truth as it really is, rather than as we want it to be? We can begin by understanding what happens when we think only of ourselves. When this happens, the world becomes like a huge mirror in which we see nothing but our own reflections. Even when we look at other people, we see only what they can give us or what we can get from them. But when we see beyond our ego-based desires, when we see how we can help, how we can give, how we can share, we begin to see the truth. Here is a story that will help us to understand this concept. Once a poor man came to the house of the Baal Shem Tov to ask for charity. Everyone knew that the Baal Shem Tov always gave the same amount, 18 coins. Although he was not rich, he never wanted a poor person to leave his house empty-handed. This particular poor man, however, asked for 5 rubles, which was a lot of money for the Baal Shem Tov. So the Baal Shem Tov's servant told him, "You cannot have 5 rubles. It's impossible." The poor man replied, "I was once very rich, and during that time I gave money to everyone. Now that I don't have any, it is your duty to give me money the way I used to give to every poor person who came to my house to ask for charity." The servant said, "I can't do that because there are rules about how much I can give." Just then the Baal Shem Tov came to the door and asked what was going on. When the servant told him, the Baal Shem Tov turned to the beggar and said, "Instead of asking for 5 rubles, why don't you ask me why God took all your money?" The Baal Shem Tov told the beggar to sit down. Do you remember when you were the richest person in the city and every Yom Kippur you used to give tobacco to the whole congregation to help them with the fast? The last time you did this, there was one man who fasted not only on Yom Kippur, but through the whole year. He was so poor that he didn't have anything to eat. You said to yourself that it was beneath you to give him any tobacco because he was so poor and he looked so terrible. It turned out this man almost died, and as a result, there was a great outcry in heaven, and that resulted in a decree that all of your money would go to that man. Today he is rich and you are poor. When the beggar asked how he could get his money back, the Baal Shem Tov said, if you ask the man who is now rich for some tobacco and he refuses to give it to you, all of his money will go to you. So the beggar went back to the city and stood next to the rich man in the middle of the prayer and said, give me some tobacco! Exclamation point. The rich man answered, if you are asking for some, you probably need it, and gave him the tobacco. Later, the beggar went to the rich man's house and knocked on his door. When the rich man appeared and asked what the beggar wanted, he answered that he wanted tobacco. The rich man answered, if you are asking for it, then you need it. Again, he gave the beggar some tobacco. This went on and on in many different situations. Each time the rich man said, if you are asking, then you must need it. Then came the wedding day of the rich man's daughter. Just as the rich man was dancing the father-daughter dance with the bride, the beggar interrupted him, saying, please give me some tobacco. He was sure the rich man would refuse because it was in the middle of the wedding. But the rich man's answer was the same. If you're asking, you probably need it. The poor man couldn't believe what he was hearing, and he fainted. When he woke up, the rich man asked him why he passed out, and the beggar said, you don't remember me, but I used to be the richest man in town, and the Baal Shem Tov said that you had the merit of getting all my money. Excuse me. The rich man said, if the Baal Shem Tov says the money is yours, I will give you half of it on one condition. You must never refuse anyone who asks you to give. You must remember when somebody asks something of you that you are not doing anyone except yourself a favor by sharing. The only way to really see the truth is by truly seeing other people. Observing them carefully to see what they are lacking will enable us to understand what we ourselves are missing. Only by helping them to make their correction can we correct ourselves. Otherwise, we will be like Balaam, and even the animals will see more clearly than we do. Regarding the evil eye, Balaam had the power to give the Israelites the evil eye. The Zohar says, however, the eye of Balaam, the wicked, was evil in every way. Anywhere he gazed was destroyed as with a flame, since there does not exist such an evil eye in the world as the eye of the wicked one. The Zohar, Balak 39:390. Says, we speak a lot about the evil eye, but most people don't really know how it works. How can it be that one person simply looking at another can bring suffering? Subtle forces are awakened by the evil eye. For example, what happens when a person looks enviously at someone else's car and says, wow, what a car? In his heart, he is asking, why does he have that car? In this way, the attention of the negative side is attracted, so that if the owner doesn't deserve the car, it is taken away from him. The truth is that we don't deserve most of the things we have, but the Creator gives them to us as a result of actions we are hopefully going to take in the future. When other people judge us, however, it awakens supernal judgment over us, causing us to lose what we have. We should never assume that nothing bad will happen to people just because they are righteous or sharing. They are also judged, and whatever they don't deserve can be taken from them. Excuse me, burping. Excusez-moi. By participating in and connecting with this reading, we have the protection so that even if someone gives us the evil eye, we will be dealt with mercifully, and judgment will not be able to prevail over us. There are actions we can do to prevent the evil eye. One of the most important of them is wearing the red string that is wound around Rachel's tomb in Israel and imbued with her Creator's protection. This is because Rachel, the matriarch who cried over her sons, is the source of mercy for all of us. She is everyone's mother. When the Shekinah is like the female aspect, angel of the physical world, who heals and protects. So when the Shekinah first appeared to Moses, she is called an angel. As it says, the angel of God appeared to him in the flame of fire, Exodus 3:2. To Jacob, it did not appear like that except in a likeness, meaning by Rachel below, who is the likeness of Rachel above, which is Malhut. Malhut is the physical world, earth we live in the tree of life, the 10 Sephirot. It is written, Rachel came, which is the form of another Rachel above, which is Malhut, and so David is also referred to as Malhut. He's the patriarch that's affiliated with the physical world, Malhut, and then Rachel's the matriarch. As is written, thus says God, a voice is heard in Ramah, Rachel weeping for her children. Jeremiah 31:15. This Rachel is the secret of Malhut. Here too, Rachel came generally indicates Malhut with sheep. Genesis 29:9. There are the levels of Malhut. Her fathers, surely since Abba, which means father, that is Hokmah. Hokmah is one of the 10 Sephirot in the Tree of Life as well. It's in the upper half, the upper worlds. I believe Hokmah stands for wisdom, is the foundation of the daughter, which is Malhut. And all of that is all the worlds were appointed and assigned to her hands, for she kept them. She also leads them and has been assigned over them. When we wear the red string on our left wrist, the left wrist represents judgment. We have control over any judgments that might befall us. More importantly, if we ourselves refrain from judging other people, then judgment is not drawn into the world for them or for us either. If we restrict ourselves from judging others, the evil eye can have no control over us in the Zohar we read. So basically, don't judge others unless you want to be judged yourself by the Creator or the world. And the less you judge other people, the less you will come under judgment by accusers. Do not eat the bread of one who has an evil eye, because the bread for benefit from any person who has an evil eye is not worth eating or benefiting from. Had the children of Israel not tasted the bread of Egypt when they descended into Egypt, they would not have been forsaken in exile in Egypt, and the Egyptians would not have been able to harm them. The Zohar Shemot 4:21. Now, this is just a little synopsis about what we just read about this portion. The synopsis of Balak. Here we receive protection from negative forces, whether jealous glances from others or curses that are trying to get through our defenses. Every day we perform both positive and negative actions, but we live under a shield of protection without which we would never survive the repercussion from even a single one of our negative actions. This chapter helps us connect to and strengthen that kind of protection. And then I'm going to read one little chapter out of the Zohar portion for Balak, where it refers to, which is the inspiration for the title of this episode. Wait. Where it talks about Balaam's, the sorcerer's evil eye, and then and David, his King David's eye. So it's called The Eye of David and the Eye of Balaam, 242. So it's just a few pages. The Eye of David and the Eye of Balaam. All right, so Rabbi Elazar says that David killed the Philistine by looking at him with an evil eye, and this caused leprosy on his forehead. Thus, the stone was sunk into his forehead. We hear that David's eye was beautiful and gazed with love on those who feared sin, but that the wicked were afraid of him. The eye of Balaam, on the other hand, was entirely wicked. Next, Rabbi Elazar says that the punishment for all the other causes of plagues listed earlier and is always leprosy. He tells Rabbi Abba how Balaam perpetrated all of these sins, and that Balaam tried to draw the abundance of Israel to his own evil side. All right, so I'm scanning the Hebrew Aramaic to draw the energy and send you that energy. Rabbi Abba said, this matter regarding the Philistine has not suited me, and I need to study it further. Rabbi Elazar said, it is definitely so. The Philistine was close to the lineage of David and was the son of This Philistine was close to the lineage of David and was the son of Orpah. If you switch the P and the R, it's Oprah. That is the meaning of what is written out of the ranks of the Philistines. Do not pronounce, there's a word there, but it says don't pronounce it, so I won't. But read from the caves of the Philistines, because he caused shame to his mother, making her as a cave, because it is written, and the Philistine cursed David by his Elohim. David gazed at him with an evil eye, and anywhere that David was gazing with an evil eye, all kinds of leprosy flowed from the eyes of David. This is the way it was regarding Joab. As soon as David gazed at him with an evil eye, it is written, and let the house of Joab never lack such as are afflicted with an issue or with leprosy. Scanning the Hebrew Aramaic. Here with the Philistine, as soon as he cursed the name, David looked at him with an evil eye and saw on his forehead that he became leprous. Immediately the stone buried. What was that noise? Anyways, sorry. Here with the Philistine, as soon as he cursed the name, David looked at him with an evil eye and saw on his forehead that he became leprous. Immediately the stone buried itself in his forehead because the leprosy was stuck to his forehead. All this was due to the impression of the evil eye of the leprosy in his forehead, that this stone was actually sunk into his brow. It is definite that he was a leper. The wicked man Balaam's eye was the opposite of David's eye. David's eye was embroidered in all kinds of colors, and there was no eye in the world as beautiful as David's. All the colors in the world sparkled in it, and it was filled with love towards anyone who feared sin, as it is written, they who fear you will see me and be glad. That is, they became happy when they looked at him, and all those wicked used to be fearful of him. However, the eye of the wicked Balaam was evil in every way. Anywhere he gazed was destroyed as with a flame. Since there does not exist such an evil eye in the world as the eye of that wicked one, which was the opposite of David's eye. How do we know that the punishment for incest is leprosy? It is written regarding incest, therefore Hashem will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. It is written regarding leprosy and for a swelling and for a scab. As it refers to leprosy, here too it refers to leprosy. How do we know that one contacts leprosy for thievery? Because it is written, I have now produced it, says Hashem, Tizavot, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and shall consume it with the timber of it and the stones of it. What is it that destroys timbers and stones? Leprosy, as is written, and he shall break down the house, the stones of it, and its timber. Excuse me. How do we know that one did I scan that? Yeah. How do we know that one contracts leprosy for the evil tongue? Because it is written, and Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses, and it is written further, and Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. For false testimony, how do we know that one contracts leprosy? We find that Israel testified falsely and said, these are your Elohim, Israel, in a loud voice, as it is written, there is a noise of war in the camp. Thus they put out of the camp everyone with leprosy and everyone that had an issue. In both cases, the term of camp is used to indicate an analogy between them. About a judge who distorts justice, how do we know that one contracts leprosy? Because it is written, as the fire devours the stubble, and as the chaff, chaff, and their blossom shall go up in dust. Excuse me. What is the reason? Because they have cast away the Torah of Hashem Tazvaot, and the blossom means nothing other than leprosy, as is written. And if the leprosy breaks, blossoms out abroad, if one infringes on boundary rights of his neighbor, how do we know that one contracts leprosy? From Uzziah, who infringed on the rights of the priesthood, as it is written, the leprosy broke out on his forehead. How do we know that someone who incites strife among brothers contracts leprosy? Because it is written, and Hashem plagued Pharaoh. Bereshit 12:17. Because he caused quarrel between Abraham and that David's evil eye. Because he caused quarrel between Abraham and Sarah about an evil eye, how do we know? This is, as we already studied, that David's evil eye was inflicting with leprosy those who did not fear Hashem, which is God. So we have proof that the evil eye causes leprosy. All this was applicable. All this was applicable to the wicked Balaam. Come and see that it is written to Petor, which is by the river. What is the meaning of by the river? He responds, he set his evil eye on the river that is in Israel, which is Yesod in Zeranpin. It's talking about the tree of life, the 10 Sephirot, like the different chakra points from Keter, heaven, all the way down to Malhut, earth, the different dimensions, the different energies. Behold, I will extend peace to her like a river. Balaam came upon Petor, which is Malhut of the other side, and was provoking them. Right, 2 more paragraphs, and then we're going to move on to the shamanic healing from Itzhak Berry. Rabbi Abba said, certainly all these things applied to Balaam, but how do we know that Balaam, was also involved in sexually indecent behavior? He replies, because it says, behold, These caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to revolt against Hashem, God. We have here idol worship of Peor and sexual immorality of Cosbi, daughter of Sur. How do we know that the false testimony applied to Balaam? Because it is written, and knows the knowledge of the Most High. And yet he did not know even the thoughts of his beast, because he could not figure out why his she-mule detoured from the road. How do we know that the distortion of justice also applied to Balaam? Because it is written, come therefore, and I will advise you, for it was still debated and impends on judgment if Israel is guiltless or not. Yet he gave bad advice to harm Israel, and that is a perversion of justice, and didn't care if he did it, and counseled harmful things about them. And this is the last paragraph of this chapter. He infringed on and what was beyond his boundary rights. How do we know that about Balaam? Because it is written, and I have offered upon every altar a bullock and a ram, and it is written, I have prepared the 7 altars. Yet the offering of sacrifices belong to the priests and not to him. And inciting strife between brothers applied to him as well, because he caused strife between Israel and their Father in heaven. Evil a tongue applied to him, since no one in the world was a master of the evil tongue as he was, since all his power was in his mouth. The curse of the holy name applied to him, as is written, while I go to the meeting yonder, which means that he wished to uproot Malhut, earth, called Ko from Israel. All these things were in him, and the evil eye, as we learned, and everything was directed against the river of Israel, that is Yesod of Zeranpin. He set his eyes on it to provoke it to bend its abundance to his own evil side, to the land of the children of the people. He asks, don't we know that this was the land of the children of his people? He responds, that is only the secret meaning, that which all the members of his people were attached to it, as we have studied already. Alrighty then. So interesting, because it's talking about crossing boundaries, and what we're about to do now, we're going to do a shamanic cord cutting ceremony, and then read a little bit from Itzhak Berry's shamanic healing book, Traditional Medicine for the Modern World. And I'm going to pull up a shamanic cord cutting prayer. So we're going to smudge with the dragon's blood sage. So let me read a little bit about what that type of sage is for. Sophie. Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. So here's my dragon's blood sage that we're going to use. Dragon's blood sage is a blend of white sage and dragon's blood resin, traditionally used for cleansing, protection, and spiritual purposes, which is perfect for what we're going to be learning about and what we were already learning about. Smudging. Burning dragon's blood sage is used to cleanse and purify spaces, removing negativity, energy, and promoting spiritual renewal. Rituals. It is often incorporated into rituals and ceremonies to enhance protection, ward off evil, and manifest intentions. Meditation. The smoke from dragon's blood sage is believed to aid in meditation by calming the mind and deepening focus. Healing. Some traditional practices use dragon's blood sage for healing purposes, particularly for skin conditions and wounds, which is interesting because we were just learning about leprosy, which is a skin condition. Protection. It is thought to provide a protective shield against psychic attacks, negativity, and misfortune. How to use: burn dragon's blood, sage, smudge sticks in a safe container or smudge pot. Add dragon's blood powder to incense or bath water for cleansing purposes. Mix dragon's blood resin with essential oils for topical application. All right. And then, so this, we're going to do the cord cutting with the selenite cord cutting wand, aka knife. Which is funny because, like, when I did the photo, I did like a photo today and I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the kind of shape of it looks like, the Kali Oracle. She has that curved sword. So I was like, how funny, it's kind of like shaped like that. And then I have my her other hand, she's holding a bowl, and then one of the other arms is like holding like a head, but she's holding like a bowl, and I have my my singing bowl is like it's the plate I have it on is like the Om symbol, which is Sanskrit, the language they use in Hinduism, and Kali's a Hindu goddess. So I was like mimicking the picture, like doing her sword and her holding the bowl in their other hand. So I was channeling Kali. Set this over here. All right, so I'm just going to read you a tiny bit about selenite and what selenite does in the wand. So selenite is a variety of gypsum, like GYPSUM, is known for its powerful cleansing and purifying properties. It's believed to clear negative energy, promote mental clarity, and enhance spiritual connection. Selenite is also associated with emotional stability, stress reduction, and overall well-being. Here's a more detailed look at the properties. Cleansing and purification. Clears energy. Selenite is excellent for clearing negative energy from spaces, objects, and even other crystals. Purifies the aura. It can help cleanse and balance the aura, promoting a sense of peace and harmony. Self-cleansing. Unlike many crystals, selenite is believed to be self-cleansing, meaning it doesn't need to be cleansed itself. Recharges other crystals. Selenite can be used to recharge and cleanse other crystals by placing them on or near it, which is amazing because my Merkaba is selenite too. So I can literally, put it on my altar and put all my crystals around it to charge it or charge them. Mental and emotional benefits. Promotes mental clarity. Selenite is thought to enhance focus and mental clarity, making it helpful for meditation and decision making. Calming and balancing. It can help to calm the mind, reduce stress, and promote emotional stability. Reduces negative emotions. Selenite may help to clear away negative emotions like anxiety, fear, and confusion. Connects with intuition. Some believe it can open up intuition and access inner guidance. Spiritual and metaphysical properties. Connects with higher realms. Selenite is believed to facilitate connection with higher realms, spirit guides, and angelic realms. Crown chakra activation. It is also associated with the crown chakra, promoting spiritual growth and connection to the divine. Protection. Selenite is considered a protective stone, shielding against negative energy and harmful influences, and enhances meditation. Its calming and clarifying properties make it a useful tool for meditation. It says physical healing. Some believe selenite can aid in physical healing, particularly for headaches, migraines, and skeletal issues. Promotes better sleep. Selenite may help improve sleep quality and reduce nightmares. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Interesting. Flexibility and stability. It is believed to promote flexibility in the body and stability in the skeletal system. Wow, I didn't know that. Said it should be kept dry. Its selenite is a soft mineral and should be kept dry to avoid damage. While it's a powerful cleansing stone, avoid prolonged exposure to water or salt water. Selenite is associated with the zodiac sign Cancer. Wow, how crazy that we're in the sign of Cancer right now. And I had no idea because I just got these, the selenite Merkaba and the wand or knife, cord cutting knife. And I didn't even know that I was going to use it in the sign of Cancer. Selenite is associated with the zodiac sign Cancer and is considered a powerful stone for those born under this sign. Wow. Who knew? So freaking cool. See how sometimes it's like I'll just channel something that I want to use something and I won't even know it just fits like a puzzle piece. Like it was like, could that not be more like kismet that we're using it in the month of Cancer? So freaking cool. Okay, now we're going to do the actual cord cutting ceremony. And I pulled, ooh. Sorry, oops. Sorry, I just clicked on I'm supposed to be clicking on my phone, not the computer. I almost fucked up excuse me. Yeah, I think it's going to be impossible for me to not curse a few times on accident. Oopsie daisy. I almost screwed up the freaking live. Sorry guys. If it paused for a second. All right, so let me pull up the prayer. Okay, here it is. So it says you can call on an archangel. So since we're working with like Metatron and you can call on Archangel Michael because he's known for like protection with his sword. But we're definitely going to call on Kali since she is kind of the theme. So we can call on all three. So Archangel Metatron, Archangel Metatron, Archangel Metatron, Archangel Michael, Archangel Michael, Archangel Michael, Kali Ma, Kali Ma, Kali Ma. I call upon you to assist me in this cord cutting ceremony. I ask you to sever and transmute all negative energetic cords that bind me and the people watching this episode of Supernal David, that bind me or us to any negative people or anyone sending any sort of form of evil eye or ill wishes. I release these cords with love and forgiveness, and I reclaim my energy. I ask for your protection and guidance as I move forward free from these attachments. Thank you for your presence and assistance. Amen. Sending this energy out to you guys. All right, we're going to light the my body. So you can take it and go around, the rim of your body. Go up and down your chakra points. Cover that so it doesn't set off my smoke alarm. And now we're going to do the cord cutting. Same thing. You can just cut around the parts of your body. And then you can also use, this is a shamanic rattler with nutshells. Rattles have been used by shamanic practitioners from the very beginning. Of two most well-known percussion instruments utilized by shamanic practitioners, the rattle is utilized in the way a magician flourishes a wand. The rattle is what summons, calls, and attracts the attention of spirits and guides them into the sacred work that we perform. Rattles can take a variety of forms and shapes, and they can be made from a variety of materials, including wood, animal hides, and sometimes plastics. In shamanism, we believe everything has a spirit and everything can be worked with one of the spiritual levels and spirit world. Thus, it's not uncommon to find shamanic practitioners in a pinch utilize medicine bottles as quick substitutes to the rattles. What is important are two things. The first, the spirit itself. If you are able to connect and communicate with the spirit, anything that can be turned into a rattle, including a simple Tylenol or aspirin bottle, can be utilized. What counts are not necessarily the contents of the rattle, but the spirit. With that said, there are many cultural practices and religious groups who have very intricate rattles with their own rules and protocols. For the sake of core shamanism and neo-shamanism in general, what is most important is the spirit itself. Therefore, if you are able to connect with the spirit, then little else matters in achieving altered states of consciousness. So we're going to clear the energy. All right, and now we're going to go into a little bit of Itzhak Berry's shamanic healing. Now we're going to talk about, he has a chapter called An Encounter with Evil Forces. I have been going to the Amazon for 15 years to learn from South American shamans. A few years ago, on the bank of one of the Rio Negro tributaries in the Brazilian Amazon, I took part in a sacred ayahuasca ceremony led by an Ipixuna tribal elder. As the effect of the bitter brew took hold on me, I heard syrupy, sweet, angelic sounds. And then saw gentle looking whitish spirits hovering above me in a soft whirling dance. This time it will be an easy ceremony, was the happy thought that relaxed me. But that was not to be. After a while, those sweet spirits came closer and asked me to convert to their religious teachings. Naively, I politely refused, asserting my no, atheistic, yeah, a theistic upbringing at the kibbutz where I was raised. But they kept sweet talking me, promising salvation and all my heart's desires in return. A red flag came up in my mind. That's, what's funny is Yitzhak Berry, I don't always click with other, men. It just depends on like their energy because I am gay. But Itzhak and me and him just always had this like we see each other, like we just get each other. Like I don't know, it's just like I always just felt like I vibed with him. And when he says certain things, like he just reminds me of like how I am. Like I just can't stand like religious oppression. That's why this is cracking me up. So, but they kept sweet talking me, promising salvation and all of my heart's desires in return. A red flag came up in my mind. Who are these spirits? Suspicion flowed into my body. They kept trying to tempt me. If you follow our teachings, you will get what you want and become who you want to be. I became agitated. I used to get that way when people were trying to shove like Christianity or Catholicism down my throat. There was like this guy in my neighborhood, and his mom used to come over to my house when I was like a young teenager, and they were like Christian, and they'd be like, you have to if you want to be saved and be into heaven. He would come over with his mom, and they would just like literally act like they were trying to save me and my mom, and they're like, but you have to pray through Jesus to get to God. It was like so technical and so like religious, and they were acting like they had to save us and that we had to tell them that we accept Jesus into our heart and that we can only get to God through Jesus. It was just like this whole thing. A lot of us have heard this before, right? When they're just kind of missing the whole point. So it says suspicion flowed into my body. He became agitated. We started to verbally wrestle with each other. It's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap. I heard the ayahuasca spirit warn me. It's so funny. Don't fall into the hands of evil. Look and see their real faces. Oh, that is hysterical. Oh my god. I love him. I looked up again and now recognize their true faces. They were contorted and ash dark with hollow eyes. I was taken aback. We began to argue again. They laughed acidly, saying in a superior fashion, you can't resist us. We rule millions of people around the world and who follow us blindly. Oh my God. We continued to wrestle for what seemed like a long time. At last, totally exhausted, I found my inner power and declared as loudly as I could, I choose to follow the light. I'd rather give up my life than join you. Again, I heard them ridiculing me. An inner voice came, doubting the statement immediately. I don't know how this idea came about, but I found myself using all the energy I could muster in my shaky body to gather in the powers of light. Then I threw that energy toward them like I was a native warrior throwing a Conta spear on a group of ferocious wild pigs. I did not let go. I thrust it over and over again until they slowly receded and finally disappeared into the dark void. My body relaxed. I was grateful to feel the reed mat under me. I took a few deep breaths and looked at the deep, starless sky. To my awe, just in front of me, floating in midair, was an unrecognized male figure. He looked like a spiritual teacher because he was engulfed in bright light. He opened his arms and said sadly, "The unveiled evil forces took over our ancient Hebrew spiritual teachings. They truly intend to conquer the world by fear and deceit." "Yeshua?" I asked. And at that instant, I saw an extraordinary beam of light and love streaming from my heart toward this humble and loving fellow man. I felt great kinship with this man who was born and lived close to where I did. Then I realized that a soft, bright light surrounded me completely, too. "You are part of me," he said kindly, and he slowly vanished. My head began clearing. The bitter bruise effect slowly dissipated from my mouth and body. I heard the wind blowing through the jungle's leaves. Loud cicadas sang, and the rhythmic cacophony of sounds of big toads and tiny green frogs filled the cooling night air. Bewildered by this unexpected vision and message, I lay on my mat for a while, mulling its meaning in my head. Oh my God. So there's then the shamanic approach. Ooh, this is crazy. This book is so freaking good. So it says, the shamanic approach, when I speak about evil spirits, I make a distinction between four types, which are slightly different in manifestation, origin, and experience. So many times they can blend into each other. I still believe that it is helpful in shamanic work to make distinctions about them. First, independent evil spirits come from a different realm than the one we live in and may take many forms, often a ghastly animal-like creatures. In the Tucano-Amazonian language, they are called akuras, or what we think of as gargoyles. Another type is simply bad spirits that are shape-shifting energy forms. They can be shapeless or can appear in human form. Sometimes these bad spirits are those of deceased people who were angry or frightened during their lives and died with those death continue to spread a kind of angry energy. Third, there is a bad energy that does not have a human appearance, but is sent by humans to hurt each other, such as curses and the evil eye are sending out emotions like jealousy. Last, these negative energies can also be found in certain geographical locations like land, springs, mountains, cemeteries, battlegrounds, and human habitats where traumas and violent activities occurred like wars, battles, murders, torture, and so on. Accepting the view that evil can be an independent force in the universe may seem primitive and uneducated or a superstition from the past. Some shamanic traditions hold that there are no good or bad energies, just energy, and that assigning it is only a construct of our mind, but looking only for the light and not acknowledging the shadows, and darkness is like denying the existence of night. One Amazonian tradition holds that several evil forces possess every person all the time. These can manifest as addiction, anger, sexual misdeeds, jealousy, lying, greed, stealing, and so forth. These characteristics are caused by an intrusion of negative forces, which can be removed by local shamans. Some modern examples of possession. This is going great in the theme with last rites for the Conjuring movie and that's just 2 months away. So we're like in July, August, and the beginning of September 5th it comes out. So excited. So we'll do an episode once it comes out and we'll like discuss, and it'll be kind of like paired to this episode. Some modern examples of possession. In my workshops on shamanic self-defense, participants tell personal stories about their own encounters with evil spirits in various forms. In my healing practice, I have encountered many clients who have suffered from some kind of possession. What follows are some examples of possession with the names changed to provide anonymity. Kathy, a professional in the world of finance, was hearing male voices who gave her misguided driving instructions, reprimanded her on her own bad behavior, and sometimes punished her by preventing her from obtaining the job she was applying for. Helen, a young beautician, claimed she was possessed by an evil entity that caused people she was in close contact with to have bad accidents. Ooh, that's crazy. Mary, a filmmaker, had her right hand shaking uncontrollably. The best neurologists in New York City saw her and they could not find anything wrong. She believed it was caused by an evil intrusion. She was right. After a series of treatments, the hand stabilized. Paul, an author, a lot of times people have attachments and they don't even know it. Paul, an author, claimed evil spirits because sometimes the evil spirit, because I've watched paranormal investigations over the years, and I've watched a lot of like possessions and exorcisms. I've watched a lot of exorcism movies about the subject. I've known people where I could tell they had attachments, and when I would try to do anything like cleansing around them, they would resist and get like freaking irritable. So a lot of times the attachment that's in them will get angry or defensive if you try to do anything that's like healing or cleansing, or it's like that Tori Amos lyric from her song Spark. She's afraid of a light in the dark. Paul, an author, claimed evil spirits that resided in his stomach told him to hurt himself and mutilate other people. Jane claimed she woke up at 2 in the morning to see a dark force in her bedroom. When I was younger, I could see, I remember sitting in my bedroom and having my door open to where you could see like the kitchen and the cupboard, and I could see like shadow figures moving in the kitchen, and I would be like terrified. So I've been able to see shadow figures at certain points in my life. Jane claims she woke up at 2 in the morning to see dark force in her bedroom, which then proceeded to strangle her. This vision repeated itself for a few months. Also, one time when I moved to Chicago, the first apartment I stayed in, it was my first studio apartment there. There was some sort of oppressive energy, and anytime I would lay down, it felt like this oppressive energy was like hovering and smothering me. And I would try lots of things, and it was, I couldn't get it to go away for a while, and I would have to use like all this like I remember I ended up starting using like sage and Kabbalistic tools, and then I could get it to stop with like the tools and the sage. But when I first went in there, it was like such an oppressive energy, whatever. It was like a really old building and they were like revamping it. And it was right near Lake Michigan, like literally a block. And sometimes water is like such a huge, like powerful conduit for spiritual energy. So I'm not surprised that that building was like influenced like that. Brandon, a CEO for a high tech startup, encountered alien evil spirits during and after consuming ayahuasca. After repossession, he resumed normal life. Bruce, a practicing shaman, was having panic attacks due to the intrusions of negative spirits he absorbed during healing sessions with his clients. And there's two more. John was cursed by John was cursed by his father, who told him from an early age that he was stupid and that he would never produce or do anything good or worthwhile. After a healing session, he went on to become successful. Lydia was convinced a snake named Charlie had taken residence in her left leg, and from time to time climbed up her spine. After his removal, she came back and asked to reinstate her friend. She missed his company. It's like, what? Now you're just being funny. I've never done plant medicine as an adult. Now, when I was a teenager, I did acid multiple times. I did mushrooms multiple times. I did not enjoy the experiences at all. And it was enough for me to never even want to do plant medicine. And I know, even though I've been through a lot of trauma, and I know there's a lot of people say that doing plant medicine when it's with, the like the right in the right situation, like my a friend and teacher Parashakti that I worked with for a few years, I would work with her with like, creating like video edits on her social media from her documentary. And then I also was part of her tribal Winged Ones Council. And then we were just friends. Like we would just call each other and talk about whatever. And I would do graphic design for her on social media. Well, she worked for Rivmia in Costa Rica. And that's kind of like a resort where you can go where they have like um, real shamans on hand. You're doing it with like multiple people and facilitators, and there's um, medical assistance on hand as well. And so it's like it's probably if you're gonna do something that you want to be in like really safe hands, I would recommend like a situation like that. If I were going to ever do something like that, I would want like medical staff there and not just a shaman. I would want like medical staff. And I had some bad experiences when I tripped on like, and it wasn't ayahuasca, but I did mushrooms and acid, and it was just I had some really bad experiences, and I never forgot those memories. And just I don't like the feeling of like hallucinating, and you feel so out of control, and it goes on for so long. It's like it was like traumatizing to me. There was parts where it was like funny, and I was like, I remember there was parts where I was like uncontrollably laughing, or there was parts where it was just like cool where you're listening to music, but then there was parts where it was like demonic, it was scary, I was around the wrong sort of people, and they were like trying to like intimidate me. I would throw up. One time I almost died because I was puking and choking, and I was at like a Stone Temple Pilots concert at the Aladdin. We had to leave because I was puking and hallucinating so bad, and I was choking, and my friend thought I was going to die because I couldn't breathe. It was just, yeah, it was, I had some bad experiences as a teenager, like experimenting with drugs. Um, like this is, we're going to just do a little bit more of this, and then we'll move on to the Kali Oracle reading. And then we're going to do, because this is going on longer than, I don't want it to be too long, and it's already pretty long. And we'll talk a little bit about what the next Conjuring movie, that case, is about. And I'll just give you a glance at the Kali Oracle, and we'll call it a night. So it says, how to detect evil spirits. I asked Ipupira about the nature of evil. He looked me straight in the eyes. With his wise brown eyes, and said, it is hard to detect negative energy when it is not showing its real face. When it often does not do because it is deceiving and shape-shifting nature. Because of its deceiving and shape-shifting nature. Interesting, I was thinking about this recently. Many times it appears as a force for good, love, and light. The evil or negative energy promotes suffering in others, which sometimes they accept in return for a temporary gain of money and power. He continued, it thrives on igniting fear, unleashing anger, creating separation and division, and calling for revenge. It creates helplessness and depression mentally and economically. This heavy energy wants to slow things down and bring life to a stop. If not cleared, it seeps through our clothing and skin into our mind, tissues, organs, and bones, resulting in sickness or even death. On the other hand, positive energy or light energy is easier to recognize because the forces of good tend not to harm anyone. This energy treats all beings with love and equality and shows reverence for Mother Earth. It is our role as shamans to remove negative energies and replace them with positive energies that restore health and balance to our clients' lives. By Ipuperia, I said, why do some people do evil to others? Ipuperia explained that some people do bad things not because they were born bad. No one is, but because of the negative energy of outside forces they can't control, which they allow in out of fear. All right, and then here's just some of the protection techniques. Physical processing for protection, smudging, house energy cleansing, sea salt, corn flour, coal, baths. It says you can put sea salt, or you can put like sea salt in your bathtub. Sweating, sweat lodges, steaming, steam rooms, saunas, sweating it out. Blowing of sugarcane rum, eggs, feathers, stones, green and black candles, amulets, mirror, plants, nature, handshakes, sulfur, protection stones. Other physical protection tips. Psychic processes for protection. Be aware and alert. Use your intuition to spot danger and bad energy from people around you who are angry, agitated, or depressed and will suck your energy out of you, and also from negative places. Sit quietly, take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, and visualize yourself surrounded in a bubble of light, or imagine a source of white light above your head. Encase yourself with this protective light. A heart filled with love is the strongest protection. Send love to your nemesis. It is hard to do, but necessary to give them gratitude for their teachings and not hold anger and resentment in your heart. Yeah, you want to stay high vibration. So anything with love and peace and forgiveness, you want to, that is the antidote, not getting angry and being in a state of judgment or revenge. That's low vibration energy. So if you're dealing with trying to protect yourself from low vibration energies, you want to stay high vibration. So you are not on the same vibration. You're not a vibrational match to it. Also with the salt thing, you can, it says, you can put like bowls of salt under your bed with water with salt in it. Put a bowl under your bed or in certain parts of the room. He says to just refresh the water and leave the salt there. Spray holy water and salt water mixture blessed by a priest or a spiritual teacher. There's all sorts. He has like so many things. Then he has like additional healing tips and ceremonies. Aloe vera, aromatic oils, cedar leaves or pine needles, chamomile, charcoal, grapes, natural needles, red and pink rocks, roses or carnations, sangre de dragos, dragon's blood, stinging nettles. All right, so yeah. I don't want to get too much into all those because we're running out of time, and I don't want this to be, it's like already going on longer than anticipated. Okay, and so here's a little glimpse of the Kali Oracle book journal. Journal that you can order, from Barnes and Noble along with the Kali Oracle. Like really like gorgeous like artwork. The cover is like nice and like sturdy and thick. It's like really beautiful. So it has like a little introduction, and it has all like journal pages with like little quotes about Kali or consciousness about Kali, and there's more like really beautiful photos, which they're probably the photos from the Oracle deck. Look how pretty. In the back, there's more like stuff about devotional prayer dance for our gentle Kali to heal and bless body, mind, and soul. All right, so let's get into it. Let's do the reading, and then we'll call it a night, and that'll be the first official manifestation of the Supernal David podcast on YouTube. All right, where's my scissors? Unboxing it with you. All right. The gorgeousness. Let me turn off this light so you can get. No, I guess it doesn't make a difference. All right. Ferocious grace and supreme protection with the wild divine mother. They say that Kali protects the righteous. Even though she looks scary, she's protecting the righteous. She's like Ganesha. So episode 2, we will be learning about another Hindu god, Ganesha, who I actually had like a personal experience with in dream state, but it was more than dream state. It was like a visitation. And so I just got his deck, and I psychically had 2 experiences this week channeling through two of my tarot friends, synchronicities led where Ganesha was making his presence known, that he was like coming to connect with me again and assist in removing any sort of blockages. So here's the book. The deck. I can get the whatever, I'm just taking it off. All right. Dear Kali Ma, we call upon you to remove any obstacles or blockages preventing any of us from moving forward in our love life, in our health, in our careers, in our abundance, in our finances, in our spirits, in our elevation. Please guide us and give us whatever wisdom you'd like to impart to myself and the collective who's connecting with the Supernal David podcast. We thank you, and we are so grateful for your protection and your guidance. Interesting. I used this picture in so I used like 3 different in kind of my build up advertisement on Instagram for this episode. I used like 3 different photos online from the cards of the deck, because you can look up like the cards like on Google or whatever, and so I used, this was one of them. So it's so cool that that's one of the cards we got. So it's Bhadra Kali, which is a certain aspect of Kali, and so there's different names of with Kali, like it's a different aspect of her. All right. So number 14. 94. All right. Bhadra Kali, our wild divine mother knows when to become gentle with our hearts. Bestowing sweetness that liberates us from fear. Though you may have faced much struggle and challenge on your path, though it may seem only the most powerful intensity could stem the tide of negativity, the Dark Mother of Grace will conquer the obstacles to your freedom with gentleness. She manifests herself now as Bhadra the Gentle. She will calm the waves of emotion, eradicate doubt and despair, and provide safe and graceful passage through all difficulties. Bhadra Kali, or wish-fulfilling Kali, is an auspicious and gentle form of Kali Ma. She is Kalyani, who gives peace and happiness. She is the giver of windfalls and blessings. She appears when a gentle way will best accomplish what is needed. Sometimes we are drawn to Kali because we need her ferocity. Sometimes what we learn as we connect with her is that we deserve tenderness, sweetness, and gentleness, and that we have been far too hard on ourselves for far too long. Bhadra Kali reminds us that we are strong enough to be gentle with ourselves. If we have been subconsciously sabotaging ourselves, she softly and deftly breaks the pattern. We no longer need to engage in unnecessary drama under a mistaken notion that it is necessary for growth. Sometimes the growth is in choosing to cultivate and apply the kindness, strength, and wisdom needed to disentangle and disengage from drama. It is about finding the inner strength to be true to ourselves in a moderate and peaceful state of being. Raksha Kali, without the protruding tongue, so often associated with fiercer forms of Kali, is an expression of Bhadra Kali or gentle Kali. Raksha Kali has 2 arms, blue skin, and a gentler expression. She is celebrated on the eve of the Buddha full moon in May, which streams an abundant and blissful download of amplified grace to Earth. Her presence signifies a time when an unusually powerful cosmic wave of spiritual light is very soon to become available to you, like a surfer sensing and paddling towards the perfect wave. You can attune yourself to this sublime current of divine energy and allow it to lift, guide, and move you. It is a prediction of an imminent, joyful, and significant breakthrough. At this particular time, great progress than usual is opening up for you. Raksha Kali is worshipped for protection from epidemics and drought. These are literal and symbolic protections. An epidemic is a mass contagion. It can be a swiftly spreading disease of the body, but also of the mind. Fearful collective reactions based on societal conditioning and manipulated through the media can spread like wildfire. The collective psyche of humanity is consistently being influenced. There are abundant spiritual sources of goodwill and peace constantly broadcasting divine love to humanity. And there are forces of negativity and mean-spirited disruption seeking to assert their agendas through the human collective too. The Kali wisdom within our hearts recognizes fear-fueling energy for what it is, no matter if it is dressed up as something else, and knows when and how to say stop. That's awesome. Kali's presence in being commanders, negative forces, instead of undermining us, we respond to those energies in such a way that our peaceful inner light increases. We become increasingly skillful in redirecting our attention, intention, and action along productive healing pathways. The presence of negative influence does not need to be denied nor decried. It does not need to be acknowledged without one becoming overly interested or engaging with it. Kali promotes fearlessness and confidence because she knows how to use all energies, including negative energy, to promote light and awaken and blissful freedom within the soul. That's like transmuting negative energy, using it for light. This oracle indicates that your heart has the wisdom to transform even the most negative experience, true, into a source of healing and freedom. You will not be negatively influenced by others, although powerful in effect, your healing path shall be gentle. Another expression of the gentle side of our dark mother is Shayama Kali, the peaceful blue goddess. Her presence teaches us that it is not always effective to fight fire with fire or to try to overcome force with greater force. Her wisdom is that of a gentling nature, able to calm, disarm, and diffuse. There is not always a need to try and grapple and conquer. Sometimes the need is to simply let go. Nothing rightfully yours shall be denied to you. The simplicity of this can confuse those who have learned they need to pick up any gauntlet thrown by any person at any time. Just because another has created a reality for themselves and is attempting to draw you into it, it does not mean that you must participate. You have the divinely granted gift to choose where you invest your energy. Be strong so that you can know gentleness. Invocation ritual. Say the following prayer. Out of the fire of divine wrath, your gentle form emerges, calming the raging waves of emotion and disturbed fluctuations of mind. In settling myself beneath your fiercely compassionate and tender gaze, I find steadiness, kindness, and peace. In this eternal moment with you, I find steadiness, kindness, and peace. In this eternal moment with you, I am no longer afraid. Bhadrakali, Rakshakali, Shayamakali, my heart softens as I take delight in the realization of your generosity and sweetness. With humble mind and willing heart, I bow before you, ready to receive with gratitude, love, and wonder at your divine beauty and kindness. You are the unscripted creativity of the gentle yet unyielding divine workings for the greatest good of all. Jai Ma Kali. If you wish, you can complete your sacred invocation ritual with a Kali dance. This may be done with or without music. Say the following mantra repeatedly, singing or whispering it as you allow your body to move with gentle and loving expressions. Bhadra Kali, Jaima Kali. Feel, intend, or visualize that Kali is within your heart, shining love and blessing. Allow your arms and hands to express fluid, perhaps slow movements as you chant. Finish your prayer dance of Kali with your hands resting over your heart. Take a moment to imagine, intend, or visualize that the beautiful, loving blessing you have begun to generate is shining as a golden light within you, reaching out for the spiritual benefit of all beings, a glorious light in the darkness. When you are ready, imagine sealing yourself in that light in her presence. You are blessed and protected. Now place your hands in prayer and bow your head with thanks. You have completed your sacred invocation ritual. Aho. Thank you, Kali Ma. There's also a song by Tori Amos, which is about the dance of Kali, that if you'd like to listen to on your own after this, you can connect with her dance. It's called Addition to Tori Amos, Addition to Light Divided. Hold on, let me make sure I'm saying the title right. Edition of Light Divided. Tori Amos Edition of Light Divided. So this was amazing. I love you guys. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, we're going to do a full season of this, and I'm going to put a lot of energy and thought behind it and preparation. And it may be like twice a month, once a month. We'll just see how things go. But I will if you want to follow me on my Instagram, it's SupernalDavid77. I also have another one that was just kind of created for the America's Next Top Hitmaker competition. It's the Mannequin 77. But yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, which is my preferred. I have a Facebook and a TikTok, but they're just very like primitive. I'm just beginning with them, but I'm more of like developed on my Instagram pages. So if you'd like to connect with me there, you can, and see the promotion for the YouTube episodes that I do on there. All right. I love you guys. God bless. And I will see you guys really soon. Take care. How do I close this out? End stream. All right.